Hey bro, you just have to find what works for you. You know what? I tried this and it worked for me. It might not work for everyone, but it worked better than what I was doing, so it must be the right thing to do. This is the sort of stuff that we hear in the training world. And the problem with a lot of this is that this is based upon the assumption that there aren't things that work for absolutely everyone. And because people will imitate people who literally have no idea what they are doing and they just get good results because they have really, really good genetics, or they're combining what they're doing with a copious amount of drugs that facilitate better results and increase their margin of error, or the combination of the two. And so you see a lot of really bad training methods out there. They get utilized and they are made popular by people who are in these situations, and people never stop to realize that just because they got a few results doing something themselves doesn't mean that more proven methods used by coaches all around the world wouldn't have gotten them twice as good of results. And this is really the problem. And it's not to say that people aren't a little bit different. Yeah, we do have slight differences in our bodies, but we're not that much different. Yes, we have differences in recovery ability, we have differences in work capacity, but those are things that can actually be trained. And that's what people need to remember. Work capacity can actually be trained. You can train for better work capacity. So the thing is, a lot of the times, many of the differences that we think we have really only have to do with how much workload we can handle and how quickly we can progress. That's it. Or how experienced we are, and therefore how much diminishing returns we're seeing. But you know what the thing is? Most of the stuff of what's going to work for you is stuff that's going to change over time anyways. And if you understand training and you understand the basics that are out there that most really good coaches put out, you'll understand how to predict those things ahead of time. Meaning you shouldn't have to try new things. You shouldn't have to experiment with your body, because there's a lot of things that we know work well for virtually everyone as long as they do them at the right time. And I mean, this is where all this stuff comes into people talking about supersetting and muscle confusion or blood flow restriction training. People want to try all these different things because they get all this nonsense out of the bodybuilding world and not stepping back and looking at what a lot of the best coaches around the world have athletes and people do everywhere, and not realizing that, you know what, for someone who is relatively inexperienced, meaning you're still a novice, basic progressive overload on big barbell movements will make you bigger, will make you stronger, and will improve your body composition if your diet and rest are in order. And I can name for you guys several people who are very well known in the industry who all repeat the same thing. And even some of the YouTubers who most people go, oh my God, those dudes have amazing physiques. And they're not necessarily what you're thinking of drug abuse physiques either. But look at the starting strength guys, Ripto. That guy has trained thousands and thousands of people. And I'm not saying I agree with all of his methods or everything he says, but he's had thousands of clients get results. And usually the biggest problem when people don't get results running his programs because they're not even following it properly. They do their version of what they think his program is supposed to be instead of doing it. Or they do really bad diet advice. They don't follow the diet advice that his diet advisors give. And so either they don't gain muscle or they gain too much fat. But that's on the diet end. So when guys who don't need to gain 20 pounds of body fat drink a gallon of milk a day, guys who are already carrying too much body fat, things like that. But the thing is, progressive overload on basic barbell movements works for literally every human being walking the face of the earth. You will gain muscle and you will gain strength doing that through your entire body. Other people, let's look at guys out there who you guys think of as aesthetic guys. Perfect example, Martin Burkham, the golden one, Marcus Folan. Those two guys have almost identical training philosophies. Incidentally, they have very similar looking physiques. They both tell you stuff like if you get as strong as possible on the squat, the bench press, the deadlift, the overhead press, and the weighted chin up, you will get big. And if those things don't work for you, then literally nothing else will. That in other words, if you can't get big, getting as strong as possible on those 5 exercises, there is literally no hope for you to get big because you don't have the genetic ability to do so. You're completely hopeless. That will work for everyone. And the only difference you see between those guys is just the way that they program them. And that one of those guys likes the overhead press and the other one likes the push press. That's not a whole lot of difference. And they're both saying, hey, you need to get really strong on these basic exercises. You'll get big. You know what? Every coach who has worked with thousands of clients who has gotten them all big without drugs all preaches kind of the same thing. Get really strong on about a half dozen basic exercises with basic progressive overload and you'll get big. You'll get strong. You will improve your body composition. Eat enough food, eat the right amount of food, the right amount of protein, get the right amount of sleep in between your workouts, and your body composition will improve over time as well. All right, this stuff works for everyone. There's no gimmicks there. There's no tricks. Then when you look at other stuff, well, what happens when you're no longer a beginner? Well, that's when you go into more intermediate type programming. That means you might actually need to change the workloads through the week. That's what that means. It means you're going to have to periodize your training to some extent. But you know what? Once a person reaches the intermediate phase, periodizing big basic barbell movements as your focus works for everyone. And that means multiple types of periodization. Some work better than others, arguably. Doesn't matter whether we're talking about concurrent style training, which one variation of concurrent training is daily undulating periodization, or if we're talking about block periodization. The idea is the same. As long as you reach your minimum effective volume without exceeding your maximum recoverable volume, and you have your progressive overload properly programmed, and you get sufficient nutrition to fuel your workout, sufficient nutrition to recover from your workouts, and you get enough sleep to recover from your workouts, those things work for every human being walking the face of the earth. The problem is that when people say, well, I tried this and it worked, and it's like, well, if it worked better than what you were doing had to be really bad. And that's because guys try everything but the kitchen sink. They just throw random stuff because they don't have the focus to say, hey, I'm going to get on a proven effective training system because I'm a special, unique snowflake. And I'm not going to run that system for 3 to 6 months and see what it does, or 9 months and see what it does. No, they jump around from thing to thing, and then they wonder why nothing works, and then they stumble upon one little trick and seem to get some results. And here's the thing. How do you know you even got results? If you see noticeable gains inside of 3 months and you're not a ranked novice, it's very possibly in your head. It might very well be placebo effect, because the human body only adapts so fast. Novices will make the most profound gains they're ever going to make. If you follow any basic program, you're going to tap out your noob gains in the first year. You're probably going to make 70 to 80% of the gains you're going to make for the rest of your life in your first year, natty. And that's doable on a wide variety of novice programs that all have the basics in common. Big, heavy barbell movements, progressive overload, sufficient volume, and recovery. There are exceptions for people who have specific medical reasons, but if you do not have a medical issue that prevents you from doing the same sort of training as everyone else, odds are you are not a special, unique snowflake, and all those methods will work for you. The difference, again, is that you see some people who are so gifted that anything works for them. And so, yeah, those people try something different than this and it works. But if you're not genetically gifted, or you're not on drugs, you probably need to stick to these basic things and not go experiment with a lot of stuff. Because at the end of the day, I mean, again, I had a guy say, well, you know, this blood flow restriction works for my calves. I tried everything, high reps, low reps. He didn't mention anything about his programming. He never said, I followed a linear progression for my calves where I increased the weight using microplates on the stack. And did, 3 sets of 10 for 3 weeks, and then went to 3 sets of 8 for 3 weeks. He didn't say anything about a progression pattern. He said he tried everything, which means to me, if you've tried everything, that means you didn't have time to follow a proven system for a year straight, right? Because if you had followed a proven system for a year straight for any particular goal in training, there's no way you could have tried everything unless you've been at this for a decade. And it's pretty sad if it takes you a full decade to figure out what works, given all the literature out there. So the take home of this, and people need to remember, is that when you hear someone say, hey bro, you just need to find what works for you, I'm going to translate that into English. That means I don't know how to program anything, so you need to just figure it out on your own, because I don't know how to coach anybody and I don't know how to write a training program that will work for most people. So just figure it out. Essentially, it's coming from the point of ignorance. Alright guys, but that's really all I have to say on that today. I hope it's been informative, and I will talk to you guys next time.